I first heard about Twelfth Night? Well, quite by coincidence, really. I was living at that time with somebody that I was writing music for, Davy Jones of the Monkees, and I've done lots of different kinds of music. I'm not the sort of person that would say, you know, that kind of music you can't do, that kind of music you can't touch. And as a good friend at that time, well, he'd asked me to you know, collaborate with him on a few things, and by coincidence, I believe his agent. I can't remember her name now. You'll have to ask Brian that one because, well, she also knew Twelfth Night. So there was an immediate connection there, and she apparently, according to David, came along one day and said, you know, well, maybe Andy would be interested in this, because obviously they were well aware that the kind of music I was writing for David's shows was absolutely nothing to do with what I would do day in day. And I saw it and I thought, well, you know, I'd actually bought the Melody Maker that year, that week as well, and they had a spread in there, and I'd read it and I thought, you know, pretty interesting, you know, looked pretty good. I'd already played around with prog rock with Canis Major, who I was with for some time with a very good friend of mine, Tony Bodermead. And so, you know, I was actually quite interested in this kind of music, and I thought, well, you know, let's go along and see what they're like. I'd never heard them play before. I had no idea of their music or some such. Gave a call, and we met up, and the rest is kind of history.
Andy undoubtedly brought fantastic vocal skills. You know, I mean, he's not the largest of individuals, but he has a great voice.
We chose Andy over a number of quite good singers because he was a very good singer. He had actually got a voice that could hit the notes, bring some expression to them, but he was also a very good musician. We thought he would come in and bring the ability to write musically as well as lyrically and vocal melodies. He was a bundle of activity. We thought he could bring something to the stage show that was active but very different. We didn't want just to do the clone Jeff, use the same costumes, the same things. So, and he, during the audition process, was just quite fun. I have to say, he was less daunted than a number of the other people who approached us. We did a rehearsal with him where he came along in high heel boots and the leopard skin top, and during the heavy metal solo bit on sequences got on the floor and bit Andy Revell's ankles. So he thought, anyone who can do that, they're welcome in this band. So.
When I did the deal with Martin Hooker for Live and Let Live, the agreement provided for another album. So we always knew that, you know, we were scheduled to do another album with them. And, you know, if we hadn't signed with Hit and Run, we'd have done the Art and Illusion album, and it probably would have been a full-length album. Somewhere along the line, the decision was made that we should hold back some of the tracks for release on a later album, hopefully on a major label. And thus, we decided to do a mini album for Music for Nations. I'm not sure that they were too upset with that, because I think they'd done some similar things with some of their other bands. It felt a bit uncomfortable because I think we knew that it was a business, a commercial decision rather than an artistic one. And although we weren't unused to making those kind of decisions, and I'd impressed on the band from a very early stage the fact that if we wanted to have longevity in a career, that we had to make some of these commercial decisions. I mean, that, again, would have been something that didn't sit terribly well with Jeff from time to time. But I think that I remember feeling uncomfortable about it, partly because I had the personal relationship with Music for Nations. I mean, I'd done the dealings with them, and I never felt that it was really morally the right thing to do. But by that time, Hit and Run were managing the band, and obviously, you know, it's not that we had to do what they said, but, you know, Tony Smith is, you know, one of the most successful managers in rock music history, and you have to defer to his opinion, you know, sometimes, and you can't really turn around and say, well, actually, I think I know better, Tony.
The tracks that we had sorted out for Art and Illusion, It would have included Take a Look, it would have included Blue Powder Monkey, it may have included London Fair, had it been ready by then, and various other things we had floating around. I mean, it would have been a full album, probably about 9-10 tracks. And we were kind of shied off of that, you know. So it wasn't, you know, I mean, we tend to say, you know, it was a business decision. Well, it was a business decision, but it wasn't a band business decision. You know, I think we would have liked to have done a full album. Certainly we owed Martin Hooker, you know, a decent farewell. Martin Hooker of Music for Nations.
No, there was a blur of writing. We went through that long summer that year, and there were lots of things flying around, ideas that came actually to be recorded at different times. So you had the Blue Powder Monkeys, you had Take a Look was beginning to be looked at. There were things that came through quite at the beginning, like First New Day.
First New Day is, yeah, it's a very special song, particularly sentimentally, because lyrically it's about my brother and sister who died when they were very young. They unfortunately had muscular dystrophy, which is a wasting disease of the muscles. And I was particularly frustrated, obviously, by this. It was actually happening around the time I joined the band, and actually my sister died while I was in the band in the first year. And I was incensed, you know, in my anger, that it seemed that so much money was being wasted at this particular time, as it always is, it seems. You know, trying to find new methods to kill people.
Art and Illusion was a track that we'd written with Jeff and obviously performed with Jeff. And Andy just sang it fantastically. And I mean, some of Jeff's things he had to sing very much as Jeff did, so he wasn't able to put too much of his own imprint on it, certainly in the vocals and the melodies, I mean, perhaps in the presentation. But when we started writing, you know, tracks with him, I mean, First New Day is a fantastic piece. I mean, that's currently being played. Andy's playing that solo on the shows at the moment, and you know, it's just brilliant.
Well, the Dominion, when we played it in '84, was great because it was a big venue, the first one headlining on our own with no support. It was pretty well packed out, and we thought we were doing a good job, but couldn't quite understand. The audience reaction was a bit down until I found out afterwards that half of the PA kept cutting out. And we were totally unaware of that on stage. And I must admit, I didn't particularly appreciate the addition of a stripper coming on for Brian's birthday. But it was, we thought, as I say, when we were playing it, it felt great to be in that environment, but it was a huge leap for us. And the other problem we had with the day was that technically it was the first show we'd done on that scale, and it took most of the day just to put the lights in. So it was just a day of waiting and waiting, doing a 10-minute sound check, and then going and playing in front of your biggest indoor audience you've ever done. So it was a bit stressful, but you know, when we actually got on the stage, it was great fun.
High water mark. I don't think so, because I think some of the shows on the Art and Illusion tour were successful as well. If you mean in terms of number of people coming to see us, yes, I mean, we repeated it at the Dominion at the end of November, at the end of an Art and Illusion tour. But certainly it was the biggest show we ever did on our own as headliners. You know, at that particular time, we still didn't have a major deal. There were 1,500 people in there, you know, a few celebrities backstage eating my sandwiches. So in some respects, I think it was. Certainly by the end of the year and the second Dominion show, I think the high watermark had been reached, yeah.